Hello, and welcome to my show, Poetry with Dr. Neil. Today we are very honored to have a very special poet, Edna St. Vincent Millay. Hi Edna, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How are you today?
I'm very well, how are you?
Doing pretty good, just like any other day. Alright, so I have a few questions for you. First off, what was your childhood like?
Well, I was born February 22nd, 1882 in Rockland, Maine. Growing up was kind of tough though because my mother divorced my father because of financial irresponsibility. So at the time it was really tough, but in the end I'm kind of like happy that it happened because she taught me and my sisters great independence and to be our own person and to only rely on ourselves and not a man, which really influenced my poetry. And then afterwards we moved to Camden with my mother. And there again, that's when she taught me how to be a woman and how to take care of yourself and not have to rely on a man. And after that, that really influenced me to go to college because I wanted to do what I could for myself and I wanted to just rely on myself and be able to provide for myself.
Very nice. Very interesting. So, how did your childhood really influence your adult life?
You know, like I said with my mother bringing me up to be a very independent woman, it really led me to have my own opinions in life. And one of them I was very passionate about was the civil liberty. And I believe that people, no matter gender, race, or sexuality, should only abide by the laws that are fair to everyone. They shouldn't abide by the laws that only favor white or men or anything like that. So that really influenced me and made me really passionate about things in life.
Is that why you support Sacco and Vanzetti?
Yes, I thought it was horrible that they were accused just because they were an Italian immigrant and because of their beliefs. And I actually was at a rally for them and I was jailed for supporting them. Okay. And because of that, it really led me to start writing about anti-totalitarian poetry.
So it's no secret that you're a very accomplished woman. Out of those accomplishments, what are you most proud of?
I'm very proud of winning the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1932, especially because I was the first woman to ever win this award. And basically it's just saying that I was the best poet of that year. And it's very honorable to be able to see that mention. And I really am so proud that women are finally being recognized for their talents. And I also won the Frost Medal, which again was just, a poetry winning thing. But I believe the thing I'm most proud of is definitely my feminist activism, and that really influenced me in my poetry, and I wrote a lot of poems about it, especially because nowadays writing and poems and letters and everything really influence society, and I believe it's important for society, men, women, and everybody to know how important women are.
Completely agree. Thank you. So throughout all the success in your life, who would you say has been the most supportive influence?
Well, besides my mother and my two sisters, my husband John has been very influential in my life. He is a great man, and our relationship really motivates me to do better in life. It motivates me to tell the world the kind of relationship that should be around, not just a woman being in the house or anything like that. And John is also very supportive, and our relationship is very non-traditional because he's the one that stays home and does the cooking and cleaning while he lets me go out and do my job and write poetry and do influential things in the world. And also a lot of things that people didn't know about us is our relationship is kind of interesting because he lets me have different lovers from time to time, even men and women.
Alright, so and now we're going to switch gears a little and talk about a pretty controversial topic, World War II. Why were you so passionate about it?
Well, before World War II started, I'm sure, as you have read, I wrote a poem to warn the United States of America and warn the citizens in here that this war was not going to be a good war. And I wrote Apostrophe the Man, which was basically just warning everybody about the war. And that also really influenced me to continue following World War II. And especially after everything that happened with Hitler and the Nazis, I was just so distraught over it. Like, I couldn't believe what someone could do to a single race or even a town, especially the destruction of Czechoslovakia. And I was just horrified by this after I found out about it. So I decided to write The Murder of Ladys.
Okay guys, so it's time for a quick commercial break. When we get back, we will follow up on the two poems that Miss Millay has just talked about. And we're back. So before leaving for break, we were talking about a very controversial topic, World War II. And you mentioned two poems, one of them being Apostrophe to Man. Would you mind going into a little more detail about that?
Yeah, I'd love to analyze it for you.
Thank you.
Through the first 3 lines, I talk about the cycle of life throughout a war. As the government believes it is our civic duty to reproduce and provide our country with soldiers, our whole life is consumed by war, as we are born to breed faster only to die out after our duty is done. I then shift in line 4 from honoring those who have fought through unveiling statues, throwing parades, and making speeches to mentioning explosives and bewildered ammonia in line 7. Through the juxtaposition in my diction, I emphasize the conflict of honoring those who kill people for a living, as it is ironic that we would honor murderers. In the next 5 lines, I mention how America romanticizes war and leads the young to believe that war is something to yearn for. We take away their childhood and their potential in order to mislead their susceptible and young minds. Which leads perfectly into my concluding lines, as I show in the second to last line that your path will only lead to death. We as a country mislead our younger generations as we destroy what their life could have been for the benefit of our country's unnecessary desire to show dominance over other countries. The speaker of this poem is someone who is horrified and disgusted by what could possibly happen if America is not careful and enters World War II, as mass amounts of people can die and get severely injured. And for what exactly? To fight against someone's twisted and disturbed mind? I try to warn mankind about going to war in World War II, as our lives would center upon death and destruction, which I show through this poem. I try to emphasize the fact that everyone, no matter if you support the war or not, is in some way involved in the war, whether that may be buying bonds to support the war through money, or producing bombs, weapons, and aircrafts to help soldiers, or going into the war and fighting for our country, or having friends and families die. During a huge war like this, everyone's life is centered upon something so horrible and terrifying, and we honor our soldiers for killing people. We are no longer able to do the things we love in life or enjoy, as we are no longer carefree.
So that was very relatable. You also did mention another one of your poems, Murder of Ladis. Would you mind expanding on that?
Yeah, I'll analyze that for you guys too.
The speaker of the poem is a person who is in fear of the consequences of a war, someone who is informed about the war and its possible repercussions, but can't do anything to stop it. On the surface, this poem is about catching Hitler before he can do any more damage on Europe or move on to America. But the deeper meaning behind this poem is that Americans cannot always rely on their ego and pride to defend and protect themselves. I talk about how careless and foolish America is, because I felt that our country was uninformed about the horrors of the war in Europe. And when they were informed, they didn't care very much because it wasn't happening in our own country or to them. I didn't use figures of speech or complicated comparisons in this poem in order to communicate my message in a simple and clear way. I purposely used juxtaposing diction in this poem to contrast the America I saw and the America that the people around me saw. Words like careless in line 1, foolish in line 5, scornful in line 6, and unmolested in line 14 were chosen because of the shame that I felt about how oblivious Americans were about this horrible war. I contrasted those words with dear in line 5, ease in line 12, and free in line 14, because that is how my fellow Americans felt about their country, despite the fact that I was taking part in a horrible war. I also purposely used the words of lines 18 and 19, or will you wait and let him destroy the village of Ladis, Illinois, because I felt that Americans did not understand the horrors of the war because their homes and towns were not affected. Using the name of the town in Czechoslovakia, but the name of a state in the United States made an ironic contrast and brought important attention to the fact that Americans would not be immune to consequences if the war continued.
Alright, well that was a very touching poem. Okay, so thank you for letting me interview you and also ask you a lot of questions and get to know you better. And that's all we have for today, guys. Stay tuned for next week, and we're bringing another surprise guest along, so make sure you stop by. Thank you.